Welcome to the Forum at Holy Communion, a long-standing conversation about faith, life, justice, arts, culture. Each week, we will premiere a conversation on our channels, and then on the following Sunday, we join in the conversation with Q&A and a chance to engage on the topic. We're so glad you have joined us.
Welcome to Holy Communion's Forum. I'm Julie Graham, one of the priests here, and I'm very excited to have with us Lisa Thorpe, who is a Christian theological artist who leads many retreats and workshops, but also is a wonderful creative art theologian. And she was for many years the resident artist at the Episcopal Diocese of California's Retreat Center, the Bishop's Ranch, and is recently now a member of Trinity Episcopal Cathedral in Little Rock, Arkansas. So it's wonderful to have you with us, Lisa. So thank you for exploring the sacred feminine, what's been lost and what's been found.
Well, thank you for having me, Julie. And I'm excited to talk about this topic. And what I really want people to do in this conversation is to just be more expansive in how they're thinking about these archetypal characters that we encounter in the Bible. And so in my work, I'm wanting to show something different to get people to think and talk and wonder at how, in particular, women have been portrayed, but also just who's been left out and who's been who's in the picture, literally, and who's been left out and why, and what we can do to rethink and reimagine these characters that are meant to inform us in our journey and our connection with God. So
wonderful. Thank you. So to begin, what has been your inspiration? We're talking particularly about your piece, Ne'ama, but what's been your inspiration, your spark? Kind of what's been your journey into this sacred feminine?
Well, I've been looking at kind of the feminine energy or the feminine muse, not from the male kind of gaze idea of the muse being this sort of beautiful object that makes the male inspired, but sort of the muses and as the feminine wisdom. I started a series about 2 years ago called Women of Wisdom, and there's just small little collages that I can show you that are meant to kind of be more representational, more inclusive, more expansive, and sort of a personification of kind of a way of being in our human story. And I started making these as small images that someday I hope to make a deck of cards out of. Like I'm planning on making 52 of them. So I might want to show you those right now. Does that sound good?
That sounds great.
Okay, I'm going to show you these images. Now Alma's going to pop up and I'm going to come back to her. But these are my Women of Wisdom cards that was sort of this beginning of this whole journey of kind of thinking about the different faces of the human existence and how to think differently about beauty and awe and wisdom and tenderness. So each one of these female characters is meant to illustrate, be a visual notion of a way of being in the world. And I wanted these to be feminine images of different types so that it would get us thinking about who we're leaving out and who we're putting in, and how we think about age and race and gender and all these things. So that was kind of the beginning that would then bring me to Naama. So I can stop the share and we can discuss that more.
Yeah, please.
So I've been working on these collages and teaching workshops on allowing people to think about creating their own spirit guides. So, and those were in collage and paper and small. And people really found that to be powerful, and as did I. And my wheels just kept turning that I wanted something sort of more substantial, and also that was really kind of retelling or refilling in the story. And I was introduced to Naama, the story of Naama of the Ark, by my niece, Francesca, who's she is in divinity school. She's Jewish. She's in divinity school at Harvard. And during the pandemic, she stayed with us for the summer. And we just had wonderful conversations about female characters of the Old Testament in particular. And she told me about this children's book she had about Naama, who I'd never heard of. She's just mentioned as Noah's wife, and no name given in our version of the Bible. And so that just got my wheels really turning, like, how has she been left out of this very important and archetypal story of the earth being, it also is relevant in this time of climate change, where the earth is being misused by we humans. And that Noah and Naama and the people of the earth were climate refugees in this story, right? So anyway, to really think harder about her and who is she, and how can she inform our thoughts about the sacred, about our relationship to God, and by including her, what does that do for how we perceive ourselves and the story?
Beautiful, beautiful. So so you heard about her from
from Francesca, my niece.
Yeah. And I think there's a storybook, or you dug deeper into.
I started digging around, and I actually got that storybook that she had of Naama. And in that storybook, Naama is the gatherer of plants and seeds. And of course, when you hear that, oh, of course, Noah was gathering all these animals, but for the full survival story to happen, there had to be plants. There had to be seeds. So I just thought that was a lovely connection for Naama to be this gatherer of the growth and the plant life and the seeds of hope. It really connects her to a larger archetypal idea of an earth mother, Gaia, the other traditions, religious traditions that have a feminine earth goddess, powerful woman, and to acknowledge her as that place in the larger archetypal idea really brings the story out more to me.
It really exploded for you. I remember you mentioned that Francesca had said that she's named, that we know her as Noah's wife, but in the Midrash,
Right. And there's just a little mention of her in a very old midrash, and I wish I had the name at the tip of my tongue of who wrote the midrash, but the idea of the midrash is to explain parts of the Bible, right? So and then in the tradition, in the Jewish tradition of the midrash, it's sort of a conversation with other scholars. So she's mentioned in a midrash by a Jewish scholar quite 1,000 years ago, and but still quite small. But the name means pleasant and peaceful or something like that, which also kind of goes to that, how is the feminine supposed to be? And anyway, it's that is her mention. That's the little tiny seed, to use that metaphor, the little seed that was planted. And then the children's book by Rachel Sasso. Oh,
don't worry, Holy Communion, I'm going to get a copy of that book. It's still available.
Yeah.
So we'll have it around.
It's in a little write-up I gave you. I credit her with that story. So, or with the seed of the story. Yeah. Beautiful. So I want to make sure that she gets mentioned, and it's in the write-up. So anyway, so that really got my creative wheels turning and thinking, here's this character that we haven't fleshed out. And this is a very popular story that kind of arches over, goes beyond kind of the church storyland. It's quite this archetypal story, the story of Noah and the animals, and there's songs and everything. And to really think about that story, that myth, in a bigger, broader way, and how to include the feminine power in there of nurturing and growing, and the hope that is required to cultivate life. So
beautiful.
Yeah.
And so you got to work. So
I got to work.
So you were inspired. It all came together for you, this spark. And so the medium in which you used, your process of making this a reality of something that was coming out.
Well, I'm a mixed media artist, and so I work in both paper and fabric. And I come from a long line of stitchers. My grandma was an embroiderer and did tatting and stitch, and my mom sewed, and I learned to sew very young, and that's my first medium. My first love is sewing. And so I really wanted to connect this this piece with the feminine art of which I don't want to exclude men from doing fabric art, but it is typically a feminine art to the sewing and the quilting. And I really like the idea of connecting this feminine character with the feminine arts, and in particular in a quilt. Now this is an art quilt, but in a quilt that's root is in caring and comfort and covering, for warmth. So the root of this piece is rooted in the feminine art of creating a home and warmth. And so I decided I wanted my Naama to be made out of fabric. And so shall I show her again?
That'd be beautiful. Okay.
Yeah, let's show her. Here she is. So this is the full piece, and the background are monoprints of actual plants, because I wanted to bring that plant life in, monoprints on fabric of different plants. And so she is standing in kind of the universe of the plant life that she's, rooted in.
Mhm.
And then the down below at her feet are the flood waters.
Mhm.
And she's holding calla lilies that are uprooted. And my thought about showing the uprootedness is also, she has been uprooted. The human race has been uprooted. So she is a migrant, a refugee, and she's been uprooted. So the uprooted calla lilies are meant to represent that. And then her pockets are full of plants, and down below, we'll look at a close-up of this, are seeds stitched into her apron,
Mhm.
which for me connects back to the idea of other refugees, in particular, the Jewish refugees trying to escape the Holocaust, stitched their valuables into their coats and their clothes. And so this connects through time to that story, and then refugees throughout time that would, in any way they could, stitch their most valuable thing. And she has stitched these seeds
Mhm.
into her garment. And let's see, I think a close-up would help here. So I wanted her to be a powerful and calm presence.
Mhm.
So I feel like her face is projecting this knowing and
Yeah.
calm, and a little bit of amusement as well, I think.
Yeah.
I wanted her to be reassuring and confident in her gaze and in her mission. And she has seeds around her neck in any way that she can preserve, and her mission to reignite and regrow the earth is all about her. So
Yeah.
and
Are those real seeds around her neck, or what? Or just
they
represent
are
like little?
wooden beads, actually, wooden
Okay.
beads.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is just a close-up of the pockets and the roots of the calla lilies, which I chose calla lilies because they are an arc to connect to Mary and Easter. In the Easter story, there's often lilies, and often in the Annunciation, there's lilies. Now I made them calla lilies because I particularly love those, but I'm connecting that symbolism a little bit to the story that moves forward.
Oh, yeah.
Here's the seeds in the little stitched in. We didn't talk about the raven yet, but in this story that I'm reimagining, and in the children's book, Naama gives the raven that Noah sends out the first time they're searching for land, and they send out first a raven, and that's all the story says. And then the raven comes back and empty beak, nothing. But in my story, or in this version, Naama gives the raven some olive seeds first. And those are dropped on the muddy bits. And later, when the dove goes out and finds a branch, that's because the seeds had been planted. So it's really kind of a logical thing too, really, if you think about it. If the whole earth was covered in water, how could anything grow without planting it? So it's sort of like this knowing that how nature works, that planting must happen, the seeds have to be there and they grow. And anyway, here's the little seeds also planted right at the edge of the floodwaters receding that we see at Naama's feet. So those are just little, and they, to me, they represent kind of seeds of hope. I'm going to get back to the larger piece here, and those little seeds are right here.
Wow.
Reaching down. So there's a reaching down into the earth and a reaching up into the heavens with the gesture of Naama. So, yeah.
Well, I want to, in looking at this, and I've looked at this with you a couple of times, if not more, and now what I'm seeing in it, here's what I love about art. Well, the gift of image and texture and what you've created here is that you keep looking at it and you see the story more and more and more. And this time in going through it with you, I'm really seeing the archetype masculine, feminine coming together, the power of God to flood the earth and cause everyone to become refugee and disconnected, and the power of God as feminine to come in and heal and bring new life, a new beginning.
Right.
And right there, the whole story, the whole cycle of masculine and feminine united into this one experience.
Right. And that it takes the regeneration of the earth takes both those things. Yes. We need both. It's not one or the other. It's both. And when we exclude one from the story, then we don't have the fullness of the idea. Shall I stop the share, or shall we keep talking about?
Well, is there anything, just one more question I have for you, in looking at this time, and that's coming to that for my, in seeing divine masculine all right there in the story and in this piece, as you were, a little more personal question, as you were creating this, and I know it's a pretty large piece for you. Because I've got, it'll be here.
It's 36 by 70, I think. Yeah.
Did you notice what happened for you and what happens for you when you create these pieces? Is there a shift in you, or a satisfaction, or does it take you to a different place you weren't expecting? All of what's.
Making art in general for me is about solving a puzzle. I have an idea, and then the challenge is to convey that idea to other people. So just the process of solving the problem of Naama, how do I bring her to fruition so that my thoughts about her are something that somebody else can see and then also expand on. So that puzzle is invigorating. Just doing it is invigorating. And I literally thought about this piece for about a year. Wow. So she was just ruminating, and I was doing some research, and I was doing writing. Words are a part of my visual process, even though in the end there's no words on the actual piece, but the words are important to me. And I did sketches and thought about her and really thought deeply about the symbolism of the different elements. And even down to the problem of, this was not planned to put the fuchsia red outline around her. That wasn't something I had planned. But when I placed the figure on the green background, she was sort of getting like lost in the background. And my mom was over, who's a wonderful artist and a feminist. I was saying, well, I'm thinking about putting this fuchsia red outline around her, but is that too much? Does that make her pop out too much? And my mom, in her great wisdom, said, well, hasn't she been lost in the background long enough? And so I was like, yeah, okay. So the outline was really born of the necessity to have her stand out. But in doing that, that really just kind of gave this electric energy around her. So part of the process, you can't plan it all ahead, is what I'm saying. And part of the process in trying to solve the problem is also part of the invigorating thing. And then being able to have these conversations and for people to see her and to think, how have I thought about this character, or have I thought about her at all? And how can we be more expansive? We talk a lot about expansive language these days, or, inclusive language or expansive language in our liturgy, or in how we talk about Bible readings, but we're not talking so much about expansive imagery. So, how do we be more expansive in how we show these stories? So that was my goal, and it's very exciting, and it's got me thinking even more about the next thing I want to do. So, I'm thinking about taking on Eve next. So,
all right.
that's a biggie.
That's is that it? Can you, so what, anything about Eve as a preview?
Well, yeah, I have been doing writing and sketching. That's the place I'm at. But my Eve she's not naked in the garden. She's going to be wearing overalls, and she's going to be getting to work. And the color behind her is going to be red, a deep red, that's going to connect to that notion of the menstrual blood, and that as gift or curse, that's part of that story. And I really want to explore that because that's part of the feminine ability to grow life, so. And I'm going to have her holding a pomegranate that's open, which is, a symbol of the sort of multitude of life that goes through cultures and connects to other ancient feminine archetype or goddesses like Persephone. And so sort of connecting Eve to a bigger human story of the sacred feminine that kind of puts her in an overlay of the more ancient understanding of God. So that just that's all I'm going to do on that piece.
I hope you'll come back and we'll have another discussion about Eve. This is so cool.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But I haven't started. I've dyed the fabric. I
Yeah.
have some sketches. I'm searching for the right face. My technique on the faces is I find multiple photographs and I Photoshop them together as sort of an amalgam, and then paint that photograph and then print that painting through the miracle of digital things onto fabric. So I'm searching for her face, and I'm zeroing in on a beautiful Bedouin face of a Bedouin woman that I found from a 1907 tintype.
Wow.
That's in the public domain, by the way. So anyway, that's all part of the fun, is gathering these things, and the problem, how do I create that? How do I bring all these things that I want to put? Oh, and I didn't even say anything about the snake. I think the snake is important.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure how the snake comes into this piece yet.
Yeah. Powerful, Lisa. Powerful. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing this piece, both through this process. I feel like I've been praying with you. It's awakened me this morning in our discussion. And thank you for loaning the actual Ne'ama piece that will have obituary this Sunday. And as we wrap this up, which I'm so grateful for this, I hope it opens us all up, our hearts up, to the magnitude and glory of God as fully expressed through divine feminine and masculine, and how we are doing a disservice to our Lord, to our holy God, by not bringing in the richness, the much more complex creation that we're in. So in terms of, now we're going to have, you're in Little Rock, and we're going to be gathering here at Holy Communion on Sunday morning for those who can, to actually see in person your art, Ne'ama, and also discuss divine, the sacred feminine, and what this has awakened in people. Any advice on beginning our conversation as you look at a piece like this, or think about the sacred feminine?
I guess in my little write-up, I said something about, this is my notion, my idea of Na'ama, and it might be yours, but you might have another one, and that's amazing. And let's expand and expand and expand these images, and really look at things like what is left out and what is put in, and what's the motivation, and how do we include all the ways of being, so that we're not limiting God. When we take something out, we're limiting. So when we look at this story, and all the stories that are part of our liturgy and our readings, how do we look at that with discernment about what we're including and what we're excluding?
Beautiful. Lisa Thorpe, Christian
Thank you.
theological artist, thank you for being with us this morning.